here present in our today. For tonight, would you bless the listening ear, give us ears to hear what the Spirit is saying to each of us. May we be in these matters, Father, so that you might have the liberty to bless us. And we want to receive that. Okay, let's good. Let's turn in our Bibles. I was listening to D. Martin Lloyd Jones, and I can't remember who kind of turned me on to this guy. He's an old Welsh preacher. He died in 19, I think it was 72 or 73. But he was preaching when I was born. At the peak of his ministry was back in 1950, 51, 52. And he was a key player back then. You know what I mean? Like a Billy Graham today. But you know how incredible Billy Graham's ministry is? Was that like he spent, I think it was like 8 presidents
Wow.
in America. He was, you know,
Wow.
Billy Graham to them, you know. And he just had an incredible life and ministry. But let's not, let's not take that let's take that as an example, but not an exception. In other words, let's not just put him up on a pedestal and say, well, yeah, that's great, you know, like God really blessed him. But what about me? Well, we're going to talk about that tonight. Okay, we're going to talk about that. So in John chapter 4, and let's turn there. Well, the reason I was saying it because he was mentioning this as I was coming in tonight. It was an amazing portion, and got me thinking. You know, and I love it when the Bible gets me thinking. You know, yeah. Okay, thank you, Lord. So yes, by the way, did you put your name in there already?
Not yet.
Oh man! Oh,
Why do you, marathon?
yeah. How many of you have heard the story about the woman at the well? The woman that met Jesus at the well? Okay, that's no problem.
She's
We're going to get into that.
she's not supposed to talk to her, right? Because she's not.
That's right.
She's not
She's not Jewish.
Jewish, and she's asking, "Why are you talking to me?"
Okay.
And I guess he doesn't really talk to women either. You're not supposed to talk to
That's
women.
right. Yeah, that's right.
I read that. I mean, but
Did you hear it before you read it?
no, I haven't heard that.
Okay. Because a lot of times, you know, it's interesting. I remember hearing stuff. You know what I mean? Like either somebody was talking to me, and this is a true story. We were in IHOP. No, yeah, it was IHOP, and you know, sitting at the table, and the waitress is about ready to come, and they have these little stands on the table. You know, just menu items, okay, what you want to eat and everything like that. So they had a picture of a tall stack of pancakes, you know, butter and syrup. I mean, you're just like, wow, yeah, that's good. And then it said underneath, it says, "Man does not live by bread alone." Okay. Now, that's a quote from the Bible, but they didn't put the reference down there. They didn't tell me it was from the Bible. They, you know, they just kind of co-opt that, and basically they were saying, you know, like you ought to order these pancakes, you know, and so forth and so on. But so there's many things that we could hear or see that rings true. You know, it's just like, yeah, that's true. But you know what? We ought to find out, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Because we'll find out that a lot of this came from the Word of God. But nobody told us that. It's like they were hiding it from us, like keeping a big secret. Okay? Well, anyway, the woman was a Samaritan. Okay?
Yeah, now I remember because he tells her like all the husbands she had.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to
tells her all about her life.
That's
she goes
right.
back and tells her friends.
That's right. Yeah, man. Something happens to her. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a look here, beginning at verse 6. John chapter 4 and verse 6. Uh, Now Jacob's well was there. Now we have to go back in the Old Testament to find like who's Jacob, or like what is his story? Okay, why is this well named after him, or what did he have to do with this well? And well, we don't have a lot of time to go into that, but just briefly, Jacob, um, Jacob's reputation was that he was a conniver, man.
Yeah.
He was like, he was always shuffling stuff, to try to get ahead personally. And, he wasn't trusting God. He wasn't a guy to trust. He trusted in himself. Like if he could pull it off, he would try to do it. So anyway, um, ended up that his brother,
And Esau.
it was Esau. And so check this out. So he finds out now, Jacob, he stole his brother's birthright. Now, in the ancient world, the firstborn got the big check. Like whatever the father had was going to be going to the sons. Well, firstborn got a double portion. All right. Well, Jacob kind of, swindled Esau out of his blessing, his birthright. All right. That's a whole nother story, but it's a great story. Anyway, so now, years later, he finds out that his brother's coming to town. It's like that Western high noon, like you got guys riding into town. Who was it? Who was that? Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
It was the good, bad, and the ugly, or something
Yeah,
like
good,
that.
bad, and the ugly.
And Clint comes riding into town. Well, in any case, Esau was coming to town, and Jacob, because he just thought Esau wants to kill me. That's why he's coming, because I did him wrong, and so. But you think of this years later. Now you know what the power of forgiveness is all about? It's because, listen, if I don't forgive someone, they may not be around me today, they may not be around me tomorrow, but maybe years later, they pop back up in my life. Okay? And like, what am I going to do about that? Or like, how am I going to think about that? But I just want to digress one instance. Forgiveness, listen, forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is for me. Why is that? Because if I don't forgive you, I'm carrying around what went wrong between you and me. Whoever was right, whoever was wrong is really not the issue. I could prove that maybe you were wrong and I was right, but that doesn't solve a thing. That doesn't solve it. What God says in terms of true forgiveness is that I forgive you, so that there's nothing that you need to do for me to make it right. I got right from God. God made it right for me. Because reason being is that you may not, people that say, well, I'll forgive them if they say I'm sorry. Well, they may never say that they're sorry. What are you going to do? You waiting for them to say something, then you're going to forgive them? Man, it doesn't work like that. What works is that I can, and God gives me the ability to forgive another person. And this word, actually, forgive, means to send away, to release. I used to have a lot of people who, like they were on my hit list. Like this one owed me money, this one did me wrong, this one I'm not talking to. A long list of people, man. And they owed me something. That's how I thought about it. They owed me something. Well, you know what? That made me a poor man. Because they're walking around and like, they owe me something and I'm not getting anything from them. But what forgiveness does is it gives me the riches of God. All of a sudden now, I open up my heart because you know what I realized? I realized if Jesus forgave me, like of everything, he released me so that my approach to him wasn't like hat in hand, like begging him, to just, it was like, no, Jesus, you did that. Here's what the verse says in 2 Corinthians 5, that God, through Jesus Christ, was reconciling the world back to himself. He was doing that. The world wasn't paying him any mind. So God sent his son to turn the heart of the people in the world back to himself. And the first thing he did in order to permit that was to die on the cross for all of their sins, all of my sins. 1 John 2, verse 2. It's amazing. It's amazing. Now, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't going to be talking about this tonight, but I'm on it now, the power of forgiveness. It's amazing. And so, when I read in my Bible to love them, oh, wait a minute. Love them. You like, you don't need what they did to me. See, right away, I made a case, like I could tell you all the wrong that's going on between me and this human being. And at the same time, I can't make it right. I can't change them or go back in time and do that thing. And I'm living in the effects of, well, I need to get that straight. But I need to get it straight between God and myself first. That's where the real basis of forgiveness comes. Because I can't forgive anybody without forgiving. How can I forgive something I don't have myself? But if I've got it, then I can give it. See, that's the beauty of it. If I've got it, I can give it. John, if I gave you $100 bill, okay? You think you could give Mike $10?
Yeah.
Because you got it.
You got it.
Yeah. See? Like if I've got something from the Lord, and if you've got something from the Lord, then you have something to give. We're going to get into that. We're going to see that in this woman's life. It's amazing. It's amazing. God doesn't ask me to give what I ain't been given. But if he's given it, then I got it. Then I can give it too. I can give it too. So let's take a look at this. And wow. So he's talking to this woman of Samaria. and here's something I think that's important, okay? Jesus, it says in verse 6, Jacob's well, what we talked about Jacob a little bit. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Okay, so Jewish time, now not our time, but Jewish time. So 6th hour would make it noon, 12 noon. So the heat, sun's beating down. It's the hottest part of the time of the day. Yeah. Okay. And that's why I said Jesus was weary. So he sits down on this well. Now, this woman is coming to the well, and let's check it out, man. She's coming all late and wrong. The time that she should have come with the other women was like early before the heat of the day. Okay, you don't want to be carrying no jar of water, and I mean bucket of water is not light. Water is heavy. Last time I checked it out. But see, why is she coming at this time and not with the other women who would have come early in the day? And that was because she was talked about. Okay, She was talked about. She was shunned. Nobody wanted to be around her. And we come to see why. She was rejected. She was not allowed to come with the other women. If she wants to get her water, she's going to have to wait till everybody else is finished. And then maybe you can come around and get what you need. So she shows up at this time. But there's something, I mean, that's amazing about this. Because she had done that. And it was kind of like her punishment for doing wrong. You know, it's like the proverbial statement, you know, I made my bed, I guess I gotta lie in it. You know, it's like that. When a person says that, it's almost like they resign, they give up, but they're giving up the wrong way. They're giving up to their circumstances, but that's not where God wants them to be. That's why Jesus finds her there at the well, high noon. High noon is going to be a confrontation. Well, so she goes there because she has to at this time. And she finds this Jew sitting at the well. She doesn't know who he is. She has no idea who he is. And kind of strange that he's there sitting there by himself. Okay? But this is the picture that we see. So listen to what it says. Verse 7. Then comes a woman of Samaria to draw water. And Jesus said unto her, give me to drink. He's thirsty. He says, would you give me to drink? Because why? She's got the bucket. He doesn't have a thing. She's got the bucket to get the water. Okay. And so he asks her. Her response is that, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? Like culturally, these two were like, you know, they could not meet. They could not talk to each other. Well, you know, the Jews thought that they were special people, and so that, you know, and these Samaritans were half-breeds. I don't want to put a derogatory statement on that, but they weren't full Jews, okay? They married with the Gentiles and everything like that, and so they had their own community, all right? But think of that. Think of within this own community of Samaritans that were not accepted, here was a woman who was not accepted in the unaccepted community. She was double rejected. Man, it's a tough spot. So here it is. Why are you asking me? You know, like, wow, this is like a shocker. This is out of the norm. Okay. Well, this is in the norm. This is so good, man. This is so good. Then what the Lord says to her, listen to this. He says, if you knew the gift of God. What was she supposed to know? Was she supposed to know his name? Who are you anyway? Was she supposed to know what he was doing? What are you doing here? He's saying none of that's the issue. What is the issue is, do you know about the gift of God? And you know what, man? Listen, we could ask that question to just about anybody. I mean, just about anybody. You could just say, like, do you know that you know about the gift of God, don't you? And some people say, like, what are you talking about? Same thing here. Listen, when she got up this morning to go to the well, she wasn't expecting anything but heat, dust, and a long walk back. That's all she was expecting. She wasn't expecting this encounter. And I want you to think about this for a minute, because in my life and in your life, you know what? We tend to think like, we expect God to show up at the good times, like when everything is just right. Everything is okay. It's great. Lord, thank you very much. You know what? That wasn't what this case was. The community that rejected her. And here she comes. And there's Jesus. And I kind of think of it like this. When things like are not like they should be, watch it. The Lord shows up. And you know why? Because it's all about this gift. It's all about. He doesn't ask her, what have you been up to? What have you been doing? How come you're here like, 12 noon? You must have done something wrong, right? No, he didn't even go there. He wasn't investigating her life. He wanted her to check out his life. And that's what we're all about. Like to check out, like the Lord comes to you, he comes to me. He says the same thing. He says, do you know this gift? Somebody might say, well, you're gonna I got it, I'm a loser. I don't have nothing going on right. Well, this woman didn't. She wasn't the top of her class. She wasn't deserving. She couldn't earn this. That's what a gift is. And we blow past this so often, guys, that that on some level I've got to earn God's love or earn God's blessing or earn God's forgiveness. We think this way, but we've got to have that thinking transformed to where I realize God comes and he's talking to me like, you got to know this gift. Because if you knew the gift, listen to what he says. He says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that said to you, give me a drink, you would be asking me. You would be talking to me. Because I got something to give you that doesn't require a well or a bucket. Doesn't need a well or a bucket. Look at verse 11. The woman said unto him, Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where are you going to get this living water that you're talking about? See, sometimes we think God can't do what he says that he can do because we look around and, my problems are deep, man. Nobody knows how deep this stuff goes. Toe in there, so to kind of figure something out. Psychology tries to take a man's mind and pull it apart and find out what's going on, what makes a man tick, or how is he thinking. But even if they could find some things, they don't have an answer. At least not an answer that is going to really help. They say, oh yeah, you got some emotional problems. Here's some pills. Oh, you got that kind. Yeah. Here, take this. That's all they got. Okay. They can't reach into the real issue of who I am and what am I about. Like what is my life about? Like what am I on the planet here for? Psychology doesn't have an answer for that. Philosophy doesn't have an answer for that. Money doesn't have an answer for that. But the gift does. The gift does. So he said, you know what? If you knew this gift and if you knew who I was, you'd be asking me. And here's the beautiful thing, and I would give it to you. I would give it to you. Now, there's a Bible verse that says it like this. We have not because what? We have not because...
We want that? We want that? Or...
No, we want. But we have not, it says, because we ask not. We ask not. Why? Because maybe we think, like I don't deserve that, or like that's not my thing, or worse yet, we're too proud. We're just thinking too proud. I got it. I got this. No, no, you don't. No, we don't. No, we don't. But it says here that you would have asked him, and he, Jesus, would have given you this living water. Then I want us to skip down. This is very powerful. In verse 14, he makes this statement. He says, "But whosoever drinks of the water that I give, they're never going to thirst again." Now, the last time I drank some water, it quenched my thirst. And then a couple, 2, 3 hours later, I was thirsty again. And I needed another drink of water. Okay? And it's amazing. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. What if, and by the way, so I had to, go to the sink or whatever, go to the fridge and get the water. I had to go somewhere to go get it. What Jesus Christ is saying here is the water that I give, it will quench your thirst, and you'll never have to go looking for it again. It'll always be there. It'll always be there. I can freely drink of the Spirit of life. Because why? That's the gift that he gave. He didn't say one shot, and then let's see what you're going to do with that. Or it's only good if you behave, But whosoever drinks of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. And here's the description. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him, and what? A well of water. Now there was a well that he sat on.